you should pay yourself back. So treat your money the same way you treat a bank's money. And if you don't, you're saying your money is not as valuable as theirs. So that's all we're doing.
Welcome to the Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy podcast, where we help entrepreneurs like you exponentially build wealth through passive income to live a life of freedom and prosperity. Are you tired of paying too much in taxes, gambling your future on the stock market, and want to learn about hidden strategies for making your money work for you? And now your host, Dave Wolkoff, serial entrepreneur and author of the best-selling book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode on Wealth Strategy Secrets. Our next guest is Brent Kesler. Brent runs financial mastery with the Money Multiplier, which is essentially your guide to building wealth effectively. He follows a proven blueprint to take control of your finances using age-old wisdom and strategies. And we're going to learn more about the infinite banking approach. And also, we're going to learn how Brent was able to actually eliminate nearly $1 million in debt in just 39 months. So welcome to the show, Brent.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here to share.
Yeah, you bet. Really great to connect. And, I think the audience will enjoy this. We're obviously a big proponent in IBC. We've helped many clients, realize how to put this in their portfolio and how strategic it is. But I find that there's still just always this learning curve, right, around infinite banking. What does it actually mean? How do you implement it? What are some specific use cases of how it can be successful, right, in your own strategy? So to me, and I've been a practitioner actually myself for over 10 years, about to open up some more policies this year, but I'm constantly learning as well. And I think it's always, really fascinating to see, how people have actually, leveraged the strategy and everything. And I know you've had, a ton of experience there, but why don't we start off with this kicker of how did you actually eliminate $1 million in debt in just 39 months?
Yeah, no, actually, great question. And it's, that's kind of crazy that you say that, because that's what this concept is all about. Not a lot of people know about it. And the people that do know about it, when they see it, it's either like just, a couple different reactions. It's either like, man, this is totally awesome. I got to start this in my own life. Or there's no way that could possibly be true. This is a scam. There's something you're not telling me. There's no way it could work like this, right? So those are usually the reactions that we get. But yeah, so the whole concept of the infinite banking concept, or becoming your own banker, actually it was driven by a guy named R. Nelson Nash, right? He wrote this book here called Becoming Your Own Banker. And actually, R. Nelson Nash was my mentor. And so he passed away at age 87 years old back in the year 2019. And I'm telling you, Dave, this book, Becoming Your Own Banker, completely changed my financial life. So I tell everybody that I talk to, all the audiences, I'm like, look, this is a book that you have to add to your wealth building library. I know it sounds a little too good to be true, but the thing you got to do is, if you peel back the onion on this concept is not new. It's not, and again, it's not a concept invented or created by Nelson Nash. It's been around for over 200 years. If you research the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, the Barclays, this is what they did to build, keep, and create wealth. It's how Walt Disney started Disneyland. It's how Ray Kroc funded McDonald's. It's how Pampered Chef got started before Warren Buffett actually bought Pampered Chef. So don't take my word for it or Nelson's word for it. Do the research on this concept. But to get to your question, how did I, probably the first thing you want to know is how I even got into almost $1 million of debt, right? Just to give you a quick background, I'm actually a chiropractor. I no longer practice chiropractic anymore. I own 5 clinics in the Kansas City area. I sold my last one in 2017. That's when my wife and I became empty nesters, and I moved back down here to the state that I grew up in, which is Florida. And I just wanted to get out of the cold and stuff. And I've been teaching this concept, the banking concept, since March of 2012. I've been practicing it in my life since 2008, but I first heard about it, Dave, in 2006. But it's kind of like I said earlier, at the very first time that I heard about it in 06, I thought it was too good to be true. I didn't believe it, right? So it took me 2 years to actually start implementing it in my own life. So anyway, as a chiropractor, and again, I had chiropractic clinics, so I acquired debt through those chiropractic offices, the overhead and the expense of running, the clinic. And again, I'm telling you now how the thing is how I was able to get myself into almost $1 million in debt. I had the chiropractic clinics. I had the house that I lived in. I also had my student loans from chiropractic school. I had a house on the Lake of the Ozarks, which I still have now, between St. Louis and Kansas City. And obviously, if you have a house on the lake, you have to have a boat and a wave runner, right? So I had those toys. I'm an airplane pilot, so I had an airplane. So it didn't take me a lot to become $1 million in debt. Well, back in February of 2008 is when I really started implementing this concept. And the reason that I know exactly how much I was in debt, because that was an exercise that I had to perform. I had to perform, and I had to know exactly what my debt load was. And it was exactly $984,711, close enough to $1 million, right? Close enough for government work. Well, I applied this concept into my life, and I followed the strategies and the teachings in the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. And I was able to pay that debt off in 39 months. 3 years and 3 months. I never had to change my cash flow. I didn't have to work any harder, take any additional risk, or lose control of my money. All I did was I added that one step in my life. And that step is what? Well, the step is starting the banking concept. And for the listeners that don't know what that is, they're thinking, well, what's the banking concept? Well, the whole concept, Dave, as you know, because you said you've been practicing it for 10 years, is what you do is you put your money first into a whole life insurance policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. Now, I know we just lost half of the audience when I said the word life insurance, right? Half of them just totally tuned out because they think that's what this is a conversation about life insurance. No. Life insurance is the product that we're going to use to build, keep, and create wealth. That is the vehicle that we're going to use. So really, Dave, all we're doing in our financial life, and I know it's a lot of people make this way, way more complicated than what it is. And I always tell people, keep it simple. Don't let the nickel hide the dime, and don't trip over the dollars to pick up the pennies. Keep this very, very simple. And it is very simple. All we're doing is adding one step in our financial life of where our money goes first. So what we're doing is we're putting money into the policy, and then from the policy, we're going to use that money to pay the debt, the expenses, to make our investments, to do our lending, anything at all that we're doing in our financial life. We're adding that one step where the money goes first. And when you do that, now you're able to recycle and recapture all of that money that has been going out to other people. For example, let's say I have this $20 bill here, all right? And all we do with money is what? I ask people all the time, tell me the definition of money. All money is a means of exchange. That's all it is. That's what the definition of money is. Every day we exchange money for food, food for money, car for money, house for money, money for house. So we exchange it for goods and services. But normally what we do in our life is we give this money to somebody else to buy something. Let's just say a car, for example. Let's make believe this is a $20,000 bill and we're going to buy a $20,000 car. We give the money to the car dealer gives us the car, he's got the money, the car is ours, transaction is over, everybody goes home happy, right? So that's the way we're used to living our life. But what happened, Dave, to the $20,000 that I used to buy the car? The money is gone forever. It is gone forever. Well, when you add this one step or this one concept in your life, not only can you give the car dealer the $20,000, he's going to give you the car. So he's get the money, you get the car. But by adding that one step, you're now able to recycle and recapture that money because that money stays inside of your family. There's no money being leaked out to other people. You're recycling and recapturing that money, and you can use the same money over and over and over again because you're recycling it. The last thing I'll say before I throw it back to you is, look, anyway, there's a guy named Robert Kiyosaki. And if you don't know who Robert Kiyosaki is, he wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's what he's famous for. But he also wrote a book called Second Chance. In that book called Second Chance, the concept that I teach, the infinite banking concept, is exactly what Robert Kiyosaki talks about in that book, Second Chance. However, when he talks about it, he makes it too complicated, too difficult to understand, and people just read right through it and they don't even know what in the hell they read. Second resource is Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins wrote a book called Money Master the Game. In chapter 5.4 of that Tony Robbins book, this concept is exactly what Tony Robbins talks about. But again, they make it too complicated and too difficult to understand, and they don't really know how to implement this in their own life. So the thing that we do at the Money Multiplier is we make it very stupid simple to start and implement this concept in your own financial life. I mean, it's just adding that one simple step.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Appreciate that, Brent. Our audience is very sophisticated, so I think they really understand the process and how this works. But why don't we break this down into, some specifics around the mechanics of the process? Because, you accurately pointed out that, using a whole life insurance is actually a product, right? And infinite banking is really a process. And Absolutely. I think this is where sometimes people will fall short because they think that, well, my financial advisor or my life insurance company, I have one of those. However, they're not really using it the way that we're talking about now, right? And it was never structured properly in the first place to do that. And typically you can even call a life insurance company, your existing one, and they won't really know what you're talking about when you try to structure it properly. But let's kind of break down, let's make this real for folks, okay? And walk through some, real specifics on, basically from an income perspective. So, let's say you're making 10 grand in a month for round numbers. You make 10 grand from your W-2, or let's say passive income is coming in. How are you really making the mechanics of this really simple to put that into your policy? How are you accessing the funds? Are you doing that like on a monthly sweep or something? What have you seen that's been very simple for you to use?
Yeah, no, great. And actually, you're exactly right. If you go to the insurance company, they don't understand infinite banking. They have a life insurance product. The financial advisor is not teaching this because they haven't been taught this. The thing they're teaching is 401ks, IRAs, qualified plans, things like that, right? So, okay, the concept, the product, as you said, it is a life insurance vehicle. But again, it's not about that life insurance product. It's about the process and how you utilize the policy. So let's just be totally clear that this is not any type of insurance policy. It's not the type of policy that you will go buy from your brother-in-law that sells life insurance. No. This is a specifically designed, specially engineered whole life insurance policy in a mutual company that pays dividends, that is specifically designed for high immediate cash value. One more time, high immediate cash value. So when I say immediate, it means within 30 days. So when you put money into this policy, you start accessing that money after 30 days, right? To use that money for the things that you're going to buy in life anyway. So you're going to use that cash value immediately. So just to give you an example, and I have tons of examples on this on our website, themoneymultiplier.com. I do a 90+ minute live video on this with all kind of different examples. But the thing we do is we put money into the policy, into that specifically designed insurance company. So what we're doing is paying a premium. Now, the premium that we pay into the policy is up to you. I have clients that put in $100 a month, and I think our largest client puts in $540,000 a month into their policy. So you, the client, the customer, always decide how much money do you want to put in to your policy. But the way that I tell you to think about it, and it's a bit of a paradigm shift, because I know when we pay into an insurance policy, in our mind, we're thinking of it as a payment, as a debt, as an expense, as a liability. And it is a payment. You are paying into the insurance company, you're paying into that policy, but you have to change the way you think, and you have to look at that premium payment as a deposit. Because if you're able to use the money immediately, and remember the definition of immediately is within 30 days, is that money treated more like a payment or a deposit? It's a deposit. And tell me what word you like better, payment or deposit? Your listeners, I'm sure, say deposit. And have you ever made too many deposits in your bank account? No. So now what we do is we put that money into the policy, and then we take all of our debts, all of our expenses. And again, this could be maybe real estate investing. Maybe people out there are doing hard money lending or lending money. Now they're going to pull that money from the insurance company to go put in all of those things I just mentioned, right? Now, here's the key. The thing that you're doing is when you put money into the policy and when you pull money from your policy to do all of those things, you are not taking your money out of the policy. No. You don't take your own money. You simply put your policy up for collateral. You take a loan from the general fund of the insurance company, right? So now you're using the insurance company's money. Now, why is that a great thing? Because all of your money is still inside of your policy. So even though you're using money from that policy, you've never touched the money inside of your policy. So all that money is continuing to grow and compound in a tax-free growth rate environment, and the government is completely out of your hair. So Dave, I don't know of another vehicle on this planet that allows you to use your money this way that has these features and benefits, where it's continuing to grow and you're able to use it anyway, and it never has a downside. Nobody on this planet, no matter what state you live in, has ever lost money in a whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. It's never happened. Go Google it, go look it up. You won't find it, because inside of the policy, you have guarantees. The insurance companies are not federally regulated, they're state regulated, and they go off of something called Austrian economics, where $1 has to protect $1. You see, the thing that happens, Dave, like if, let's say we go to a conventional bank to get money. Well, a conventional bank can actually loan $8, $10, $12 for every dollar they have on hand. If everybody, like in the world, if they all made a run to the bank today to get their money, you would get about 7 or 8 cents out of every dollar. The bank physically does not have the money to give you. All that FDIC stuff that you hear about, that crap would go totally out the window. The bank does not physically have the money. The insurance company, they have to have those dollars on hand. They can't overinflate that money. $1 protects $1, right? And all that money is in that environment, because once the money goes into the policy, it grows internally tax-free. So what we do is we pay tax on the money one time only. And that's what we want to do. We want to get the money into the policy, pay tax on it, and now it's in the policy, and now it's growing tax-free, and the government's out of our hair. And then once it's in there, simply what we do, Dave, is we live our life, we buy the things that we want, we invest in the stuff that we do, whatever it is, and we use the money inside of the policy to do everything that we're doing in life, while it's all inside of that closed system, continuing to grow. And then if you're honest banker with yourself, which you should be, everybody should play honest banker with themselves. Anytime you borrow money from yourself, from your policy, from the general fund of the insurance company, right? You should pay yourself back the same way you would pay a bank back if you borrowed from them. For example, let's say you go out and buy a new car that's $50,000 and you're going to finance it for 5 years. Well, you're going to be on a payment plan to pay the bank back, and you're going to do it. You're not going to skip a beat, because if you don't pay it back, the bank will come repossess your car. So when you borrow money from yourself, you should pay yourself back. So treat your money the same way you treat a bank's money. And if you don't, you're saying your money is not as valuable as theirs. So that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing, is we're just parking that money, or we're going to put it in the policy instead of these other places that we've been trained our whole life to put it in.
What if everything you thought you knew about investing was wrong? Would you like to create a wealth strategy like the top 1% have, and get exclusive access to top private equity deals that provide downside protection, tax efficiency, predictable cash flow, and have a lucrative upside? Discover how with the Pantheon Advantage, and join our investor club today at pantheoninvest.com.
Yeah, those are some great examples, Brent. Appreciate that. And I think, for the listeners out there, the way to think about this in your portfolio, it's all about velocity, right? And adding this, component of velocity to your overall portfolio, it's going to give you such a lift. And just by, changing the process of what you're doing, it's like you're creating free money, right? Out of nothing, right? By being more efficient with it. And then the other thing that I find, especially as a business owner who's, started several businesses over the years, we're constantly challenged with liquidity in our business, right? You have a great year, you have a great quarter, but what about the quarter you don't have that's so great, right? And there's no big, corporate entity to come and bail you out. Well, I find this to be a fantastic, store of capital to manage your liquidity for additional runway, for taxes. I mean, one of the ways I manage my taxes, in addition to trying to pay nothing in taxes using advanced strategies, but by, not making those quarterly estimated tax payments, to the government, which is basically an interest-free loan to the government, but putting that capital into my policy and accruing that, it's growing tax-free compounding, right? And then pulling it out based on what you actually need come, April.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that key word you use, velocity, great word. I just use the word differently. I say motion, right? Keep the money in motion, keep it moving. And that's exactly what you're talking about, because that's what we want to do. We want to keep that money moving. The more that it moves, the more that it grows, right? Because you're continuing to recycle and recapture. And then the other thing you said, Dave, which you hit the nail right on the head, was a place to store your money. And actually, there's 3 books that R. Nelson Nash wrote. And again, you guys would probably think that I'm making all this money on the side by promoting Nelson Nash and his books. I don't make a dime on that, but it's where the information came from. He's my mentor, and it's where just where I learned the tools to build, keep, and create wealth. Well, anyway, he wrote another book called It's called right here. It says building your warehouse of wealth. And what it is that's what Nelson says. You want a place to warehouse your money, to store your money where it's protected against everything out there and you're in total control of it and you have the access. And okay, so the other word you used was called liquidity, where when you need something, when you need to purchase something, let's say again, to this house, I live in Florida, right? I live in a community. I have a big, so anyway, I don't have a big house. I mean, my house is big, but my roof is bigger because I have an airplane hangar attached to my house. I'm a pilot. I live in an airplane community. So what that means is I have to have a roof over that airplane hangar as well. So my roof needed replaced this past year, and it cost me about $180,000 to replace the entire roof on the house and also the hangar roof. And you're thinking 180, that sounds crazy. That's a lot of money. Well, it's a tile roof and it has an airplane hangar too. So there's a lot of real estate above there, right? So, and again, that expense was kind of somewhat unexpected, but I told my wife, I was like, crap, 180 grand for the roof. And she says, well, yeah, we just go get money out of our policy. And that's exactly what you do, because I've warehoused that money inside of the policy. So now what do? I call the insurance company up. Very simple, easy process. Hey, Mr. Insurance Company, I need a policy loan. How much do you need? Well, the roof is 180 grand. I need 180,000. So they send me 180,000. I pay for the roof. And then if I'm playing honest banker with myself, I should pay myself back the same way if I went down to Chase Bank or Wells Fargo to borrow the money from them just to buy the roof, right? So treat your money the same way that you treat a bank's money. There's another book that Nelson Nash wrote. It's called The Case for IBC, The Infinite Banking Concept. And just last month, there's a gentleman, he's in the Nelson Nash Institute, and his name is Carlos Lara. He's on the board of directors on the Nelson Nash Institute. And I haven't even read the book, but he just dropped his book last week. And I say last week, we're talking today on a Wednesday. This was Saturday, so 4 days ago. He dropped his book talking more in depth about the infinite banking concept. And the book is called A Perfect Investment. Now, I'm excited to read the book, but I'm going to say this, Dave, before I even read the book. I do not like the title of that new book that Carlos Lara wrote, A Perfect Investment. Why do I not like that title? Because the infinite banking concept is not an investment. It's exactly what Dave told us, what you, Dave, told us a few minutes ago. It is a process. It is a process. It is not an investment. You see, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the definition of an investment is something that can go up in value and can go down in value. The whole life policy can never, ever, ever go down in value. It can only increase. So that's why I do not like the word investment when we're talking about it simultaneously with the banking concept, because it's not an investment, it's a process. And the last little nugget I'll throw out there is I wrote a book, and I wrote it with a guy named Chris Naugle. And if you have never heard of Chris Naugle, you got to go Google this guy, Chris Naugle. Just go Google Chris Naugle, see what he's all about. But I wrote a book called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. And if it's okay, Dave, with your listeners, anybody that emails me, I'll send them an ebook of Mapping Out that Millionaire Mystery book.
Yeah, awesome. So Brent, I want to ask you two questions. One is from kind of a portfolio perspective, right? Do you have any guidelines that you practice to say, hey, 50% of my income or 50% of my portfolio, is going to drive through my policies using IBC?
Yeah. So let me answer it this way, and I'm going to read page 48 on Nelson's book, just a couple sentences. Here's what Nelson Nash says. So the title of this page is Expanding the System to Accommodate All Income. It always sounds a bit strange to people just when I say premium and income should match. Let's start with a very basic fact. So, uh, so doesn't all your money go through someone else's bank now? When you get your paycheck, what do you do with it? Right. You deposit it in someone else's bank, then you write checks against it to buy the things in life that you want. While it is in the bank, the bankers lend your money to someone else and makes a very good living doing it. So, my thought process on this is through Nelson's teaching, and I didn't get it at first, and it took me a while to get it. Premium and income should match. Well, every dollar that runs through your hands has to get deposited into somebody's bank, does it not? So why not deposit all of those funds into your own banking system, right? So, but now here's the problem. Even though we say that and that's what we want, it can rarely happen. And the reason it can rarely happen is because it's not about the number of insurance policies somebody has. I have 28 insurance policies. My 24-year-old daughter has 11 policies. I buy a new policy every 1 to 2 years, okay? It's not about the number of policies. The thing that comes into play is how much insurance coverage can you have? Because anytime you buy a policy, anytime you put money into a policy, whether you like it or not, it buys you death benefit. Well, the thing that you cannot do, Dave, is you cannot overinsure your body the same way you cannot overinsure a car or a house. So the insurance company gives you a limit to what your insurability is. Now, how do they do that? And what is your insurability? It determines on your gross income, your net worth, your age, and your health. So let's say we have two guys, the homeless guy that lives under the bridge, and you have a Jeff Bezos or a Mark Zuckerberg. Who's going to have more insurability? The Jeff Bezos and the Mark Zuckerberg, because of their net worth and their income. So the insurance company determines what your human life value is. Now, as time goes on, it can increase, and it generally does for most people. And this is why they come and they buy additional policies. I have about 13,000 clients in every state of the country. And about 91% of those clients that have been working with me for at least a year have more than one policy. Why do they have more than one? Because they see how this process, this concept, this system works. So they come back and they want to buy more policies. Then the question you and the audience might ask is like, well, why more policies? Why not just put more money in that policy? The reason you can't put more money in that policy is because back in June of 1988, I believe, our good old government came up with this thing called the MEC rule, MEC. It stands for Modified Endowment Contract, because people were trying to stuff all this money into their insurance policies. And of course, anything that we do that's going to help us and benefit the people, the government's going to find a way to get in and get some of theirs and get it stopped, right? I'm sorry if the audience is into big government, and you probably turned me off after I made that statement. But if you're into big government, you probably don't like me anyway. But anyway, the thing is this rule came into effect, and now it says, no, you can't put all that money into the policy. If you do, it's going to hit this ceiling called the MEC. And if your policy becomes a MEC, and if you go over that MEC limit, now that insurance contract is no longer treated as an insurance contract. It's treated as an investment, and it's subject to taxation. So the way we prevent that is every policy we design, Dave, and also Nelson talks about that on page number 38 of the book. The thing we do is we design the policy to get right up to the MEC limit without going over it. And then when somebody wants to add more money into the policy, they very seldom can do it in that policy. Maybe 5 or 10% more, but not enough to really talk about, right? So let's say you want to double your premium that you're putting in, you have to go get another policy. Just like this glass. Let's say this glass will hold 10 ounces of water. Well, after it gets to 10 ounces, it holds no more. It will not hold no more, no matter how much I try. I got to go get another glass. okay, another glass out of the cupboard to put water in it. The same way in the policy. That's why we start additional policies, and that's how we avoid the policies becoming a mech. But even with all that said, you have a human life number, a limit that you can be insured for. But guess what happens, Dave? After you have filled up your limit, your capacity, then you go to your spouse, you go to your children, down the road, grandchildren. If there's anybody you're in business with that you have a vested interest in, you insure their bodies. I owned chiropractic clinics. I had 5 of them. I had my staff insured. I still do, even though I don't own the clinic anymore. I had those associate doctors that worked in my office. I owned policies on their bodies. I still own them, even though I have no relationship with them anymore because I either sold the clinic or where I'm doing something different. They're doing chiropractic. I'm doing this. I still own and control the policy. So even if I own a policy on somebody else other than myself, if I'm the owner, I control everything, every function that's going on inside the policy.
Brent, what about from a management perspective? Right? If you have all of these different policies and then you've really changed the paradigm to say you're making deposits, right? Versus this being an expense. And so you're adding this extra step to the process. Do you have any, software tracking or way to actually manage, how you're allocating some of this capital? What are those, loan payments that you've set up for, maybe a vehicle or something? What have you found that's been the best way to actually manage that and have visibility into it?
Yeah, no, great question. So the answer is, all right. So like as far as all of our clients that work with us, they're all signed what we call an implementation specialist. Every client has an implementation specialist on our team that they work with. And what that implementation specialist does is they design their policy tools. And for example, we have things called the cash flow analysis, the money multiplier map. Those tools are constantly getting updated 2 to 3 times a year, every 4 to 6 months. Why do they get updated? Because people don't stay the same in their financial life. Just think of you and me, Dave. 5, 10 years ago, it was different than what it is today. And it's going to be different 1, 5, and 10 years from now because we go through life. There's windfalls, downfalls. We buy things, we sell things, right? There's promotions, there's demotions. Things change in our financial life. So we have an implementation team that goes through and creates your policy tools. There's no charge for it. It doesn't cost. It's just part of our service that we do. But even without the implementation team, I want you to kind of think of this as almost the same way as you would manage a credit card. Now, I would have to, I'd have to walk about 20 feet to grab my wallet. I'm not going to do that. But let me just tell you, in my wallet, I have say 5 credit cards, okay? And on each of those credit cards, my wife takes a piece of masking tape and she puts on the credit card what it is to be used for. One is for personal. Another one is for business. One is for my business trust. One is for my charitable foundation. Another one is for my family trust. Another one is only for my airplane stuff, LLC. So I have all these credit cards because in case I forget which one to use, I just look at that piece of masking tape on the credit card, and that's what I hand the person when I'm at the counter. And then my wife will check me. Well, actually, not my wife anymore, but my bookkeeper will keep me in line to make sure I'm using the right card for the stuff. But if I mess up, it's no big deal because all she does is transfer money from one fund to the other, right? She just has to do that internal transfer. So that's how easy it is. So all of my policies are on a spreadsheet, and we can just call them policy 1 all the way to policy 28. The oldest one is 1. The newest one is 28. Now, it's not as complicated as like, oh my gosh, I got to decide what policy to pull that money out of. Like the credit card scenario that I just mentioned, it's not that complicated at all, because what you can do is you go and get money from any one of those 28 policies, any one. It doesn't matter which one you pull the money from, and it doesn't matter which one you pay back. All right. Pull the money from the policy or policies that have cash value available. And when you go to pay loans back, if you choose to pay back policy loans, put it back into a policy that has a loan balance on it. It doesn't matter which one it comes out of, and it doesn't matter which one it goes into, which is unlike the credit cards, which is, even though the credit card thing is simple, it's more difficult than the policy. The only exception to that would be is if you, the customer, want to have individual policies for certain things. Now, I don't, but we have some clients that like that. For example, there's clients that will have this one certain policy to pay all their tax liabilities, all their tax bills. They want it coming out of one policy. There's another one that says, I want to give all my charitable giving out of this policy. That's all I want to use. This policy is charitable giving. There's another one that's paying for their kids' college tuition. They only want to pull and put money into the college tuition policy here. So it can be as broad or as dialed in as you want it to be. It can be those specific policies for those specific items like I just mentioned, or you can do like I do, 28 policies. I don't care what money what policy the money comes out of, and I don't care which one it goes back into, because at the end of the day, it's all underneath my management and all underneath my control. So I don't care if policy 1 has a max loan and policy 28 has no loan. It doesn't matter to me at all.
Yeah, really great practical tips there, Brent. So appreciate that breakdown and, helping people to basically implement this in their lives, because I know it really kind of takes a lot to get your mind to really make that shift, to start, adding the extra step in the process, as you said, but also the management of it, right? And we're all busy these days with so many different things. So if you have insight into it, you can know how to intentionally use the funds and most efficiently as well. It's been very enlightening, Brent. Really appreciate your time today and coming on the show to help educate the audience. If people do want to connect with you, what would be the best place?
Yeah, a couple things. So my website is www.themoneymultiplier.com. So it's THE, the word money, the word multiplier.com, themoneymultiplier.com. All right, so like if you go there, there's a tab, it'll say Watch Brent Now. I have a full 90-plus minute presentation on how this concept works. I also have about 70 other videos on there that you can watch. Also on there, or if you guys are into podcast, to wherever you get your podcast from, go to the Money Multiplier podcast. My daughter that practices this concept, that teaches all around the country, just like I do on live stage, Zoom, virtual events. She has over 100 podcast episodes, and she records one every single week. So it's the Money Multiplier podcast. And the last thing is just my email is my first name, Brent at themoneymultiplier.com. And if you would like a copy of my ebook called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, all you got to do is send me an email, Brent at themoneymultiplier.com. Say, hey, I listened to you on the podcast here, and I will send you that ebook. I'll send you that ebook just via email. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks again, Brent. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, Dave. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. All right, guys. Until next week, take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wealth Strategy Secrets. If you'd like to get a free copy of the book, go to holisticwealthstrategy.com. That's holisticwealthstrategy.com. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming opportunities at Pantheon, please visit pantheoninvest.com. That's pantheoninvest.com.